My boyfriend wanted to sell my inherited house and send my autistic son to boarding school. I refused and discovered he was cheating. I'm Chloe, 34 female, and I find myself in a situation I never thought I'd be facing. I've been in a relationship with Derek, 37 male, for the past 3 years, and we've been living together in my house for the last 2. This house, a charming 2-story colonial with a sprawling backyard, has been in my family for generations. My grandmother left it to me 5 years ago, knowing how much it meant to me and my son, Ethan, 12 male. Ethan has autism, diagnosed when he was 3. It's been a challenging journey, but he's the light of my life. He's high-functioning but struggles with social interactions and needs a structured environment. Our home has been his safe haven, a place where he can be himself without judgment. I met Derek at a local farmer's market. I was struggling with Ethan, who was having a meltdown over the crowd and noise. Derek stepped in and helped calm him down. He seemed so understanding and patient. We started dating soon after, and for a while, everything seemed perfect. When Derek moved in 2 years ago, he made an effort to bond with Ethan. He'd help with homework, play video games with him, and even attended a few therapy sessions. I thought I'd found someone who truly understood and accepted us. But lately, things have changed. Derek's patience with Ethan has been wearing thin. He complains about the noise when Ethan has his bad days, and he's been spending more time out of the house. I chalked it up to work stress. Derek recently got a promotion at his marketing firm and has been putting in long hours. Last week, Derek and I had a conversation that shook me to my core. He brought up the topic of marriage, something we'd discussed before but never seriously. I was excited at first, thinking he was ready to take the next step in our relationship. But then he dropped a bombshell. Derek said that if we got married, he wanted us to sell my house and buy a new place together. His reasoning was that my current house had too many memories of my past and that we needed a fresh start as a family. I was stunned. This house isn't just a building to me, it's a part of our family history. My grandmother raised my father here, and then I grew up in these very rooms. When she left it to me, it was because she knew how much stability meant for Ethan. She had always been supportive of us, understanding the challenges of raising a child with special needs better than anyone. I tried to explain this to Derek, but he wouldn't listen. He kept talking about how we could use the money from selling the house to put Ethan in a specialized boarding school for kids with autism. He said it would be better for Ethan in the long run and would give us more time as a couple. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The thought of sending Ethan away from his home, his routine, and everything familiar was unthinkable. I've always believed that Ethan needs love, understanding, and a stable environment more than anything else. The progress he's made over the years is a testament to that. When I firmly refused, Derek got upset. He accused me of not considering his feelings and said that he felt like an outsider in our home. He complained that everything revolved around Ethan and that he was tired of coming second. I was hurt by his words. I thought Derek understood when we started our relationship that Ethan would always be my priority. I've never hidden the challenges that come with raising a child with autism. In fact, I've always been upfront about it, wanting to make sure any partner I had was fully aware of what they were getting into. The argument escalated, with Derek saying that he couldn't see a future with us if I wasn't willing to compromise. He stormed out of the house and hasn't returned my calls or messages since. I'm left feeling hurt, confused, and angry. I love Derek, but I can't fathom prioritizing my relationship over my son's well-being. The house isn't just property to me, it's Ethan's safe haven. It's where he's grown up, where he knows every corner and feels secure. I keep thinking about my grandmother and the conversations we had before she passed. She always told me that this house was meant to be a legacy of love, a place where family comes first. She knew the challenges Ethan and I faced, and she wanted to make sure we always had a stable home. I remember the day she told me she was leaving the house to me. We were sitting in the sunroom, the same room where I now sit writing this post. She took my hand and said, "Chloe, this house has sheltered generations of our family. It's seen laughter, tears, and everything in between. I want you and Ethan to have this sanctuary. No matter what life throws at you, you'll always have a home here." Those words have stayed with me, and they're what make Derek's suggestions so painful. How can I sell a home that holds not just memories, but the very essence of our family? I'm also worried about Ethan. He's perceptive and has picked up on the tension between Derek and me. He's been having more meltdowns lately, and I know it's because he senses that something's wrong. Just yesterday, he asked me if we were going to have to move. The fear in his eyes broke my heart. Ethan's routine is so important to him. He knows exactly how many steps it takes to get from his bedroom to the kitchen. He has a favorite spot in the living room where he sits to do his homework. The backyard is where we've spent countless hours working on his sensory exercises. The thought of taking all of this away from him makes me physically ill. I've always tried to balance being a good mother and a supportive partner, but now I feel like I'm being forced to choose. Am I wrong for refusing to sell the house? Should I have been more open to Derek's suggestions? I don't want to lose Derek, but I can't sacrifice Ethan's well-being either. I keep replaying our argument in my head, wondering if there was something I could have said differently. Maybe if I had explained better about why this house means so much to us. Or perhaps if I had suggested we talk to Ethan's therapist together about the idea of a boarding school. But then I remind myself that Derek should have understood all of this already. He's been living with us for 2 years, seeing firsthand how important stability and routine are for Ethan. I'm also struggling with feelings of guilt. Did I somehow lead Derek to believe that our relationship would eventually take precedence over Ethan? Have I been unfair to him without realizing it? But then I think about all the times I've gone out of my way to make Derek feel included, to carve out time for just the two of us, even when it meant arranging special care for Ethan. I'm lost and could use some advice. How do I navigate this situation without hurting either Derek or Ethan? Is there a compromise I'm not seeing? Or do I need to accept that Derek and I might not be compatible in the long run? Part of me wants to reach out to Derek to try and make him understand. But another part feels like this situation has revealed a fundamental difference in our values. If he can't understand how important this home is to Ethan and me, will he ever truly be able to be part of our family? As I sit here in my grandmother's house, surrounded by the warmth of generations of memories, I can't help but feel that I'm at a crossroads. Whatever decision I make will shape not just my future, but Ethan's as well. I need to make sure I'm doing what's best for both of us, even if it means making some difficult choices. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since my last post, and the situation has taken some unexpected turns. I want to thank everyone for their supportive comments and advice. Your words have been a source of strength during this difficult time. After 3 days of silence, Derek finally came back home. He acted like nothing had happened and tried to go about our normal routine. When I tried to bring up our argument, he brushed it off, saying he needed time to cool down and think. I decided to give him some space, but I couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling that had settled in my gut. A few days after Derek's return, I received a call from Mrs. Johnson, 68F, my elderly neighbor. Mrs. Johnson has been a constant presence in our lives since we moved in. She's always been kind to Ethan and me, often baking cookies for him and keeping an eye on our house when we're away. She was also close to my grandmother, and they used to have weekly tea parties in our sunroom. Mrs. Johnson sounded concerned on the phone and asked if she could come over to talk. When she arrived, she hesitantly told me something that left me speechless. She had overheard Derek talking on his phone in our backyard the day before he came back. According to Mrs. Johnson, Derek was discussing selling the house with someone, mentioning that he just needed to convince his stubborn girlfriend to agree. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Derek had been planning this behind my back? It felt like a betrayal of trust. Mrs. Johnson apologized for eavesdropping but said she felt I needed to know. She reminded me of a conversation she had with my grandmother years ago, where my grandmother expressed her wish for this house to always be a home for Ethan and me. That evening, I confronted Derek about what Mrs. Johnson had told me. At first, he tried to deny it, but when I pressed him, he finally admitted the truth. He had been talking to a real estate agent friend about the potential value of the house. Derek defended himself, saying he was just exploring options for our future. He accused me of spying on him and said he couldn't believe I'd trust a nosy neighbor over him. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story. I decided to do some digging. I know it wasn't the right thing to do, but I checked Derek's phone while he was in the shower. What I found shocked me even more. There were messages between Derek and his ex-girlfriend, Sarah, 35F. They had been in constant communication for months, and some of the messages were far from innocent. In these messages, Derek complained about living with a problem child and how he felt trapped. He and Sarah were making plans for a future together, and selling my house was part of their plan. Derek had been leading a double life right under my nose. When I confronted Derek with this evidence, he broke down. He admitted that he had reconnected with Sarah 6 months ago and that they had been seeing each other in secret. He said he still had feelings for her but also cared about me and Ethan. He tried to justify his actions by saying he felt neglected and that Sarah understood him better. I was devastated. Not only had Derek betrayed my trust, but he had also been planning to uproot Ethan's life for his own selfish reasons. I told Derek to leave immediately. He tried to apologize and said we could work things out, but I stood firm. I couldn't trust him anymore, and I knew I had to protect Ethan. After Derek left, I sat down with Ethan and tried to explain the situation in a way he could understand. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. Ethan was upset and confused, but I reassured him that we would be okay and that this was our home. The next few days were a blur. I changed the locks and blocked Derek's number. I also reached out to my friend Lisa, 39F, who's a lawyer, for advice on how to protect myself and Ethan legally. She reassured me that Derek had no claim on the house but advised me to document everything just in case. Mrs. Johnson has been a great support during this time. She often comes over to help with Ethan or just to talk. She's been sharing stories about my grandmother and the history of the house, which has been comforting. It's reminded me of the strong women in my family and how they've always put family first. I've also been spending more time in the sunroom, my grandmother's favorite spot in the house. Being there brings back memories of her wisdom and strength. I can almost hear her voice telling me to stay strong for Ethan. Ethan, bless his heart, has been trying so hard to be brave. He's had a few meltdowns, which is understandable given the upheaval in our lives. But he's also shown moments of incredible resilience. The other day, he brought me a drawing he'd made of our house, with the three of us, him, me, and Mrs. Johnson, standing in front of it. It brought tears to my eyes. I'm focusing on spending quality time with Ethan and reassuring him that our life together in this house isn't changing. We've been doing more of his favorite activities, puzzle solving, reading stories, and tending to the small vegetable garden we started last year. I know I have a long journey ahead in rebuilding trust and healing from this betrayal. But I'm determined to stay strong for Ethan and to create a stable, loving home for him, just as my grandmother intended when she left us this house. As I look around at these familiar walls, I'm reminded of all the love and memories they hold. This house has been a constant in our lives, a shelter in difficult times. And now, more than ever, I'm grateful for the security it provides us. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and I wanted to share some developments in our situation. After Derek moved out, things were tough for a while. Ethan had difficulty adjusting to the change in routine, and his meltdowns became more frequent. I took some time off work to focus on helping him through this transition. We spent a lot of time talking about his feelings and fears. I reassured him repeatedly that our home was not going anywhere and that he was my top priority. About 2 weeks ago, I received a letter from a lawyer representing Derek. In the letter, Derek claimed that he had contributed significantly to the household during our time together and was entitled to compensation. He was threatening legal action if I didn't agree to sell the house and split the proceeds. I was shocked and angry. Derek knew very well that the house was inherited and solely in my name. His contributions to household expenses were minimal compared to what I paid for mortgage, utilities, and Ethan's care. It felt like a desperate attempt to get his hands on the house's value. I immediately contacted my friend Lisa, who specializes in family law. She reassured me that Derek's claims had no legal standing, given that we weren't married and the house was inherited before our relationship began. Lisa helped me draft a strong response to Derek's lawyer, outlining the facts of our living arrangement and making it clear that any further baseless claims or harassment would be met with legal action from our side. We haven't heard back from Derek or his lawyer since then, which is a relief. Lisa advised me to keep all communication with Derek in writing and to document everything, just in case. I've started keeping a detailed journal of all events related to this situation. On a brighter note, Ethan has been showing signs of improvement. His therapist, Dr. Adams, 45M, suggested we try a new routine to help Ethan feel more secure. We've implemented a visual schedule at home, which seems to be helping him cope better with the changes. We've also started a new tradition of Friday night movie nights, where Ethan gets to choose the film and we make his favorite snacks. I've also started attending a support group for single parents of children with autism. It's been incredibly helpful to connect with others who understand our challenges. Through the group, I met another single mom, Sarah, 37F, whose son is also on the spectrum. We've become good friends, and our boys enjoy playing together. Financially, things have been tight since Derek left. I've had to adjust our budget and cut back on some expenses. But I'm determined to make it work. I've started freelancing on the side to supplement my income, which allows me to work from home and be there for Ethan. It's challenging juggling everything, but seeing Ethan's face light up when I'm there to greet him after school makes it all worthwhile. Mrs. Johnson continues to be a wonderful neighbor and friend. She's been teaching me how to garden, and Ethan loves helping us in the backyard. It's become a calming activity for him. We're planning to expand our vegetable garden this year, and Ethan is excited about growing his own carrots. I've also been reflecting on my relationship with Derek and trying to learn from this experience. I realize now that I ignored some red flags early on, always making excuses for his behavior. I'm working on setting better boundaries and trusting my instincts more. While I still have moments of sadness and anger about how things turned out with Derek, I'm mostly feeling hopeful about our future. This house truly is our home, filled with love and memories. I'm grateful for my grandmother's foresight in leaving it to us, and I'm more determined than ever to make it a happy, stable home for Ethan. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some positive developments in our lives. Firstly, we haven't heard anything more from Derek or his lawyer. It seems they've realized their claims were baseless and have backed off. This has been a huge relief, allowing us to move forward without that lingering stress. Ethan has made remarkable progress over the past few months. His new routine has really helped stabilize his mood, and his meltdowns have decreased significantly. Dr. Adams is very pleased with his progress and has even suggested reducing the frequency of therapy sessions. One of the biggest changes has been Ethan's growing interest in music. It started when Mrs. Johnson gave us her old piano. Ethan was fascinated by it, and we soon discovered he has a natural talent for music. He's been taking piano lessons twice a week, and it's been amazing to see how music helps him express himself. His piano teacher, Mr. Roberts, 55M, says Ethan has a remarkable ear for melodies. I've continued with my freelance work, and it's been going well. I recently landed a big project that will provide us with some financial stability for the next few months. It's a relief to know we can comfortably cover our expenses and even start saving a little. I'm hoping to set aside some money for Ethan's future and maybe even take a small vacation next year. Our home has undergone some changes too. With the help of Sarah and some other friends from the support group, we repainted Ethan's room and the living room. Ethan chose the colors himself, a calming blue for his bedroom and a warm yellow for the living room. Seeing him take ownership of his space has been wonderful. We also set up a small music corner for him in the living room, where he practices piano every day. Mrs. Johnson has become like family to us. She often joins us for dinner, and Ethan loves helping her in her garden. She's teaching him about different plants, and it's become another soothing activity for him. Last week, they harvested the first carrots from our vegetable garden, and Ethan was so proud. Last month, we hosted a small gathering in our backyard for Ethan's birthday. It was the first time he'd had friends over, and though he was nervous at first, he ended up having a great time. Seeing him interact with other kids, showing them his piano skills, and even managing to blow out his candles without getting overwhelmed was a huge milestone. As for me, I've been focusing on self-care and personal growth. I've started taking an online course in child psychology, which is helping me understand Ethan better and giving me new tools to support him. I've also joined a local book club, which gives me a chance to socialize and have some adult conversations. I still think about Derek sometimes, but those thoughts no longer bring pain. Instead, I feel grateful for the lessons learned and the strength I've discovered in myself. Our home feels more like ours than ever before, filled with love, music, and new, happy memories. Looking back at where we were a few months ago, I'm amazed at how far we've come. There are still challenges, of course, but I feel equipped to handle them. This house, which Derek wanted to sell, has truly become our sanctuary. I'm so thankful for my grandmother's gift and for the life we're building here. Ethan and I are looking forward to the future with optimism. We're planning to adopt a cat soon. Ethan's been asking for a pet, and we feel ready for this new addition to our family. Life isn't perfect, but it's ours, and it's good.